Hey there, Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. And if you are new here, my name is Hannah. I am a Western Practical Astrologer. All right, so today we are going to be talking all about these houses of socializing and intellect. Yes, I hope you do enjoy the video. Though, before we do dive in, just to let you know that if you would like to learn more about astrology, then head on over to the Cosmic Check-In podcast. You can also pick up a copy of my astrology cheat sheet over on my website, hannahselsewhere.com. And you can book a reading with me by going to my website as well at hannahselsewhere.com if you are interested. Thank you so much. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and to give the like today if you benefit from the following information. All right. Just to let you know, furthermore, that you can find so much more information about the 12 houses in astrology by going to episodes 22 through to 33. Alrighty, let's explore this trinity of socializing, this trinity of relating. See here that this trinity is comprised of the 3rd, 7th, and 11th houses. Indeed, these are the houses of relating. Think about our language, our thoughts, how we relate to others, collaborate with others, and essentially socialize with others. We start from this 3rd house point, and it's the 3rd house that represents the mind, our thoughts, our early discussions, our early environment. Think about the likes of cousins, siblings, immediate family members, classmates, peers, indicating here. So the 3rd house indicates how we think and how we communicate our thoughts with those around us. We see here our earliest stages of our mental development, our earliest stages, and then connecting with. Even through this, we see neighbors being a part of it, right? And then, like I said, siblings and our peers. Our mental projections and defenses are also shown here, interestingly. Consider subconscious programming that started since you were very young. But overall, yes, the 3rd house is so much about general discussions and our early and even our local area in the 3rd house. So people within our environment, consider even chit chat, small talk, and quick information, right? Quick information, quick posts on social media. It's instant, it's fast, and it's more perhaps factual, logical, so on and so forth. Then we come to the 7th house, and the 7th house represents union and collaboration, especially on a one-to-one level, on a one-to-one basis. The shadow also shows up here. So if we consider how the 1st house is so much about you, the self, your identity, the 7th house can then act as a mirror, can act as the shadow. Our subconscious shows up here, acting as the parts of the self, 1st house, that we perhaps denied or we do deny within ourselves, which then are mirrored back to us through others. And what we do is we either own or disown these parts. Still, consider then how relationships can show up on a one-to-one basis through the 7th house. Think friends, enemies, love, indifference, so on. And another thing here to mention naturally is the 7th house can point toward marriage, right? Marriage, committed relationships. It's that whole thing of the other half, the other half. All right, finally, then we come to the 11th house, and the 11th house really widens our scope because the 11th house represents the collective consciousness. So consider here how the 11th house shows us how we are connected as a whole. There is an interconnectedness naturally to the 11th house, but it's that interconnectedness that we see overall when we think about astrology, when we think about the birth chart. It's about how all of the moving pieces interact with one another. Notice then humanity truths through the 11th house, social conditioning, how we identify with grips. What is your grip identity? Can we appreciate difference or do we fear difference? Can we live in harmony even with our differences? It's these types of questions that we consider through the 11th house. But overall, the 11th house is so much more about grips, right? Clubs, the masses. I even think about influence. So having an influence on the masses, a fan base, subscribers, followers, parasocial relationships, and friendships. So basically, everybody, the way we're going to explore these social houses today is we're going to explore the third house through a lens of, okay, how do you generally sort of engage with other people? Then we'll come to the seventh house and we'll think about, okay, well, how do you show up on a one-to-one basis within your relationships and what might the shadow even have to say there? And then with the 11th house, we will explore grips and friendships and just really more about community, wider communities. Do keep in mind as well that the third house can show up as our local community, whereas the 11th house can show up as more of a wider, broader community. Okay. Oh, and by the way, you can think of that as perhaps more so social media presence, things like that. And I do want to add to this that the third house can equally show up as social media and engagement too. It's looking at how all of these moving pieces connect, isn't it? But anyway, everybody, these are the houses of relating and socializing. And do remember that due to this trine quality, we see opportunity. We see an ability to experience more of a harmonious flow. Things can be enhanced. Talents can also show up too. And on that note, before we do go through each of these houses, we're gonna focus on the rising signs. All right, so watch for your rising sign, and we're going to be using the whole sign system. Of course, things can show up in different ways depending on the system you use, but to keep this more simple, watch for your rising sign. Thank you so much. Now we're going to get into these signs. All right, so first up, we have Aquarius Risings. Yes. You were the final sign in the most recent video, the last one. And now you are the first sign in this video. Yes, Aquarius Risings. Let's discuss this trinity of relating and socializing. You've got fire signs, of course, in these houses. And so this certainly adds some passion to how you relate to other people. Notice how you have Aries ruling the third house. So this Mars influence in ruling the third. So what this can suggest about you, Aquarius risings, is that you tend to be interruptive communicators in that if you have something you want to say, you will most likely say it. You also will not shy away from a good challenging discussion, conversation, debate. And when you speak, you just might speak with passion. You might also mean what you say. It's that type of thing. There's a lot of energy and drive that goes into communication in general, just overall. And, perhaps even during your younger years or growing up at school, maybe a part of you wanted to keep to yourself, or it's that there was another part of you that could gladly lead or be the leader of the pack, or it's that you could have gotten into a few heated discussions or arguments with your peers, with others. And this could even be how you generally sort of show up when it comes to communication. And I'm not saying this in a negative way. I actually think that this can be really beneficial in that you can challenge the views of other people. For example, I imagine you as being able to be a pioneer within discussions, to lead within discussions. So, as perhaps the majority of people are arguing one point of view, maybe you're brave enough and bold enough to argue the opposite point of view, or to share just something different, something fresh, something new. And then because of that, you get other people thinking differently, right? Now, having said that, you also want to locate Mars because Mars is certainly going to add so much more to this. Mars can speak to your drive and your passion within general discussions, okay? Mars can speak to that kind of directness and that boldness within discussions. Okay, then we come to Leo in the 7th. And with Leo in the 7th, what this can suggest about you, Aquarius Risings, is that you tend to attract partners who are expressive, who are warm, or who are quite romantic. These partners could very well shine a light on your own creativity, on your own passions, hobbies, your own childlike qualities. And it could also be a case of your partners or just people on a one-to-one basis, right? These kinds of people. It's them that activate something within you about maybe shining a light on yourself or being able to step into the spotlight and to be even appreciated for what you have to share. Also, some challenges you may face with partners, close friends, significant others here. Yeah, some challenges could be feelings of being upstaged, as well as drama being stirred up. Though, having said that, you still want to think about where the sun is. So the sun is going to add a lot more depth to this. It's going to speak more to this relationship arena for you. But still, essentially, I do think that with Leo in the 7th, Leo in the 7th speaks to your own self-expression, your own warmth, and equally how you may be attracted to people who are able to express themselves. You learn a lot basically from those kinds of relationships. Heck, you know what? At the same time, it could be that you strongly dislike people who are far too attention seeking or grabbing in an immature way too. Lastly, then, let's think about the 11th house. So, the 11th house, we see Sagittarius there. Of course, Jupiter rules this house. You join groups that could very well consist of hippies, comedians, professors, scholars, preachers, globetrotters, adventurers. There is a feeling of shooting for the stars when you are involved with like-minded people. I kind of imagine you, if, for example, you rallying up loads of people. You're the one who could very well inspire other people, get other people to follow your lead to an extent. And maybe not necessarily intentionally, but it could be more so about when you stand for a greater cause, when you stand for freedom, when you stand for truth, maybe a lot of your followers are there with you for those reasons. Like I said, shooting for the stars when you're involved with like-minded people. But you can also get caught up in possibly passing judgment and thinking that you know it all. Heck, you know what? I'm going to say this. Sure, the whole judgment thing, maybe some of your judgments are super accurate, right? That's another thing too. Um, it may not necessarily be a comfortable thing for other people to feel judged, but maybe it is through your own judgments about social issues, about social situations, where, you know, those things can lead to change, is what I'm trying to say. Judgment could very well lead to change. change that is for the betterment of humanity. I'm going to say that. Yeah, you're going to use your great foresight. Heck, I just think in general, you can be super likable people with this energy. And the last thing I'm going to say here for you, Aquarius Risings, is make sure that you are locating Jupiter within the chart for more information about groups and communities and so on. Thank you so much, Aquarius Risings. And now we are going to move on to Gemini Risings. Gemini Risings, let's discuss the neutralizing for you. Notice how there are fire signs within these houses, suggesting just how dynamic and passionate and how expressive you can be as communicators. And this right here naturally leads me on to how you have Leo located in the third house. So, with this sun influence ruling the third house, you tend to stand out when conversing with others. So, if you have something to say, you will most likely say it with maybe a lot of energy, in an entertaining way, in a fun way. You could show plenty of aliveness. Maybe you know how to light up a room with your words, or it's that your words tend to carry a lot of influence, a lot of influence where people feel maybe inspired by your message. The other thing, though, I want to highlight too is Leo can be a rather dignified, regal, sort of even calm sign. So, with this, what I imagine, for example, is that you might be the types of people who know just enough about how to explain yourself without over explaining yourself, especially if, for example, there is a situation where in which other people disagree or they're not ready to face your opinion or to face the truth. Still, I do see this as you being able to hold the attention and the focus of those around you whenever you speak. I even imagine this, for example, as a part of your purpose being tied to your education, tied to learning, such as you devoting yourself to learning a certain study. Yeah. The other thing then is maybe you were popular or well known or just recognized, right? Maybe you were recognized during your schooling years, or maybe you amazed your teachers with your creative edge, with your storytelling. Heck, just in general, right? When we think about how you generally engage with other people, we notice here how you can be great at storytelling and sharing your personal experiences. Very creative writers, speakers, communicators in general, overall. Though, what you also want to do is locate the sun. The sun is certainly going to say more about this, it's going to provide more information. Okay, moving on. Let's explore this Sagittarius influence in the seventh house, right? You've got Jupiter ruling the seventh. And so you might attract partners, spouses, close friends who are open minded, who are adventurous and idealistic, the types of people that you learn so much from, you gain a lot of knowledge from. And it could be these partners that get you thinking bigger and wider, further into the future. You could very well get into a committed relationship with someone who is from a completely different culture, background, country. Maybe you decide to live abroad and you meet your significant other whilst you're abroad, for example. And it's through your partner's sort of experiences that your own views are broadened. You know, your own life is widened, your scope is widened through them. And this is also where so much experience comes into this. However, some challenges you may face with partners could include overindulgence and fears of responsibility. It could even be that partners often reflect back at you your own fears of responsibility or your own tendency of going overboard or overcommitting to things. With that being said, you want to locate Jupiter. Yes, locate Jupiter in your chart to see how your relationships play out. Lastly, then, let's think about the 11th house. You've got Aries there in the 11th house, this Mars influence ruling the 11th. So you may join groups that consist of fighters, entrepreneurs, pioneers, doers, goal setters, trailblazers, and competitors. Such groups, then, these group involvements, they lead to you possibly confronting certain situations, confronting dangerous or confronting situations that require you to face a challenge. There could be challenges that occur, but they also challenge you to take action, right? That could be a part of the challenge here. It's about taking action towards new paths, which can be exciting and inspiring. I mean, this could even be about you deciding, okay, well, I need to think for myself. I need to advocate for my own life. I need to follow my own passions, my own interests, separate from the group. It's kind of it's basically trying to find a way to relate to the group and be a part of the group, but to also have your own separate identity away from the group and to figure that out, right? So, with that being said, locate Mars. Mars is certainly going to shed so much more light on how you act and behave within those group dynamics. Thank you so much, Gemini Risings. And now we're going to move on to Libra Risings. All right, Libra Risings, let's explore these social houses for you. Notice here that you have fire signs in the social houses, really shedding light on your passionate and expressive and enthusiastic communication and just how enthusiastic you can be when it comes to relating, socializing. So, firstly, let's explore the third house. You've got Sagittarius ruling the third house, this Jupiter influence there. And so, what this suggests about you, Libra Risings, is that you tend to inspire others with your words, and there is plenty you want to say in relation to subjects you learn about. You know, there's always something new to learn. You are forever sharing bite-sized nuggets of knowledge with so much openness and so much enthusiasm, most likely inspiring other people around you, like I'm trying to get at here. It's almost like you can get people to believe in themselves, to believe in their dreams. Now, at school, maybe you were known by many for your optimism, for your happiness, for having a smile on your face, for being enjoyable, for your laughter, your wit, or perhaps you were viewed as this larger than life character. Hey, this can also be how you show up in general. So, how you generally engage with other people could be that you come across as rather optimistic, as hopeful, and there's plenty on their mind or plenty to share within a certain social situation. With that being said, do locate Jupiter, because Jupiter is going to shed way more light on what I'm saying, and Jupiter can certainly change. It's not so black and white here. All right, let's move on to the seventh house. Yes, so you've got Aries in the seventh, this Mars influence ruling the suggesting what? Suggesting that you tend to attract partners or spouses, close friends who are energetic, they are assertive, they're freedom loving, they are the types of people who are willing and brave enough to challenge you within the relationship. These partners even bring out your own frustrations, or you know what, your own passions, such as you gladly giving them a piece of your mind. Or it could be a case of other people in indirect ways that you feel that courage, you feel that bravery to just go for something, right? Because Aries very much this sign that says, just do it. And at the same time, some challenges you could very well face within your partnerships are things like anger, arguments, aggression. And hey, you know what? On a very more challenging negative side, potentially violence. This does depend on the condition of Mars. Do remember that. So locate Mars in the chart and see what is happening there. Because, for some of you, maybe the aggression, it's more healthy aggression, and then anger and stuff, it's more healthy anger, and it's more about frustrations and being able to manage conflict, face conflict, and then it's that conflict that can create change, effective change within your relationships. But naturally, if Mars is in more of a challenging spot, this could be where things are a bit more unhealthy. But anyway, yes, locate Mars in the chart. All right, then lastly, let's look to Leo. Leo is ruling the 11th house. You've got the Sun influence ruling the 11th. And what this can say about you is that you join groups that consist of possibly entertainers, performers, leaders, attention getters, fashionistas, models, or, groups that are very warm and loyal, and you bring that loyalty, you feel that kind of warmth from people within the community. Maybe this is something you're striving towards, this is something that you're looking for. Perhaps also you gladly place yourself in the spotlight when in groups, and so you easily attract others to you, right? You can be very magnetic within groups. And, maybe it's not about you necessarily putting yourself front and center, but it's more so that maybe through your ability to recognize others, to share your warmth with others, to shine your light on others, then this, of course, equates to you being very likable. I think about popularity here, your ability to influence and inspire so many people around you. And a lot of that is because you're the types of people who maybe remember other people's names, or you remember how to make things special for other people. And hey, you know what? You could also get caught up in petty dramas, as well as others trying to compete to run the show, right? There could also be those types of run-ins that happen within group dynamics too. On that note, make sure that you're locating the Sun. So the Sun is certainly going to shed so much more information, shed light on more information as to what I am communicating here. Thank you so much, Libra Risings. And now we are going to move on to Pisces Risings. All right, Pisces Risings, let's explore these social houses for you. Notice how you've got earth signs in these houses of relating, these houses of socializing. And so adding more of this stable, calming effect, this very practical, realistic effect to how you communicate and engage with others. So the third house, you've got Taurus ruling the third house, this Venus influence there. And so what this says about how you generally engage with other people is that you tend to engage with others by being steady, calm, patient. I imagine this, for example, as you being able to wait your turn really well within a discussion, being able to kind of remain calm, sit back, listen, take in information, kind of absorb it like a sponge a little bit, which is really interesting to me because that could also equivalent to you being really effective learners and students and so on. But anyway, you may choose your words really beautifully, and this can lead you actually to being well liked by so many people. You being maybe told just how poetic you are, or how gentle you appear, or how feminine you appear within conversations. Your gentle touch helps others relax and feel at ease in your company, in your presence. I even imagine this, for example, as you being able to calm other people. When there's maybe an emergency situation or there's something traumatic that's going on, you come along with this really calming, soothing presence. And then that's where, again, people really gravitate towards you and they love you for it. Likewise, you possess an artistic and creative mind. Yes, yes, yes. Moved, for example, by music, by sound, by touch, by food, whatever it may be. Perhaps at school you gained valuable relationships that could very well go on to last a lifetime, or maybe you were very intentional, very deliberate in your choosing. With that in mind, make sure that you're locating Venus in the chart. I'm saying all of this stuff, but really the placement of Venus is going to matter so much more. So yeah, locate Venus for more information about this. Then moving on to Virgo in the 7th. You've got this Mercury influence then ruling the 7th. Suggesting what? Suggesting that you attract partners who are methodical, shrewd, analytical, correcting, possibly fault finding at times. These partners somehow urge you to think critically about things, to use healthier discernment. They bring out the part of you that wants to help, excuse me, sorry, that wants to help and wants to fix, that wants to improve. Problem solving comes to mind here. You attracting problem solvers, doers, people who are able to address certain issues and be like, right, okay, well, let's figure this out together. What is the most effective way that we can get through this together? And then that's also where you come into this, right? Where you learn a great deal from these types of relationships. However, some challenges you could very well face with these types of people is nitpicking, this nagging presence, and perfectionism too, naturally. Though make sure that you are locating Mercury in the chart for more information about what I am saying. Though lastly, let's look to the 11th house. You've got Capricorn ruling the 11th, the Saturnian presence there. So you might join groups that consist of managers, CEOs, really hard workers, but maybe overworking themselves. Professionals too, elders, traditional people. Maybe you would rather join a club or a group or a movement that has more of a structure to it rather than one that's just sort of all over the place and you make up the rules as you go along. Yeah. But then again, you could very well experience blockages when connecting within groups, which can lead to feelings of sadness or isolation, or just feeling like you can't really properly relate to other people. But the thing about this, though, is that whenever you do find people who you align with and you give that time and you establish trust, when you build basically on long lasting friendships and networks, long lasting communities, you're so reliable, like really reliable. People can depend on you. You're very resourceful, you're purposeful, you're intentional, and you could be very much successful within these kinds of group dynamics. And at the same time, it can take some time, right? It can take some time for you to find your people, for you to find your tribe, so to speak. Having said that, locate Saturn, okay? Because Saturn is certainly going to add more to this story. Thank you so much, Pisces Risings. And now we are going to move on to Cancer Risings. All right, so Cancer Risings, notice here that for you, you have these earth signs located in these houses of socializing. All right. So, what this says about you, what this suggests about you, Cancer Risings, is that you show up in practical, resourceful ways within discussions when you're communicating, when you're socializing and connecting with other people. So let's explore this Virgo influence in the 3rd house. Of course, you've got Mercury ruling the 3rd house here. And what this says about you is that you tend to be systematic and detail orientated. You tend to be analytical when it comes to engaging with others, right? Because we're looking at this as how you generally engage with other people via the 3rd house. So for example, you might correct someone, or you might explain what something means, really break it down for somebody. You can be great practical communicators, drawing from practical applications, practical examples. And then because of that, the information makes sense. And then people they get where you're coming from. because they can relate. They can relate to those small, simplified versions, methods, examples, and so on. You might solve issues by communicating what can be improved, right? Major problem solvers here, very gifted at problem solving. And you might also have been a pretty discreet and reserved person, a reserved student at school, but also shrewd, also witty. I do see this as many of you being rather quick-witted in the moment, knowing maybe exactly what to say in a way where it just makes sense. And perhaps even having a few reliable friends is more important to you than having so many flaky ones, right? This is where you're very selective. I imagine you, for example, being very selective throughout school and, with your peers, your classmates, being very selective of the kinds of people that you befriended, if you will, growing up there. Having said that, locate Mercury, right? Mercury is going to add way more detail, way more information to what I'm explaining. Moving on to Capricorn in the 7th house for you Capricorn risings, or for you Cancer risings, my apologies. Yes, Capricorn is in the 7th. You've got the Saturnian influence ruling the 7th. So you might attract partners who are resourceful, reliable, committed, dutiful, right? They're structured, possibly even business savvy, business orientated. There could be this business etiquette present with them. These partners make you more aware even of your own limits, your own boundaries, and how to discipline yourself. It's almost as if to say through other people that you learn so much about commitment, so much about devoting yourself to a plan and sticking to a plan and steadily building for the future. But then again, at the same time, your relationships, they could come with a lot of hard work or having to overcome adversity. But then that within itself suggests resilience, build really establishing and building upon resilience. And then we also see challenges that you may face that could be associated with chronic fear, rigidness. It is a question of, are you able to maybe ask yourself, am I being too rigid? Am I being too serious or too sort of set in my ways, stuck in my ways here? Yeah, those could be the types of challenges to consider. Heck, it could also be through other people that this type of stubbornness, this rigid feeling is present. And then you're having to really ask yourself, okay, well, how can we reach more of a kind of a common ground here? How can we negotiate here? With that in mind, locate Saturn. Naturally, yes, Saturn is going to shed way more light on your relationships, your one-to-one relationships, and the shadow too. But moving on then, lastly, to Taurus, you've got Taurus in the 11th house here. Indeed, you've got this Venus influence then ruling the 11th house. And so you might join groups that are comprised of maybe money grabbers, foodies, artists, hedonists, possibly hoarders too, or groups that are very much in love with music, or maybe they love to go hiking on the weekends. They love to spend time in nature. Yeah, these could be the types of experiences that you have even with friends, right? Could even be a good festival or a good restaurant that you like to visit, going to nice coffee shops, whatever it is, as a way to indulge and seek pleasure here, Cancer risings. Plus, you might seek consistency and a sense of security from these types of people, leading to long lasting friendships, friendships that perhaps last a lifetime, Cancer risings. But you might also cling to these connections due to familiarity and loyalty, right? There could be that going on where it can be difficult perhaps to notice when you've outgrown a certain friendship dynamic, for example. Now, with that being said, you also want to locate Venus because Venus is certainly going to shed more light on this information. We'll speak more to those 11th house group/friendship dynamics. Thank you so much, Cancer Risings. And now we're going to move on to Scorpio Risings. So, Scorpio Risings, yes, let's talk about this trinity of socializing, relating for you. Notice here that you have the earth signs in these houses, really shedding light on practical matters. So, practical communication, steady, stable communication, and also central communication, grounded, realistic communication, and being realistic within uh, relationships when it comes to socializing. Let's then look to Capricorn. So, Capricorn naturally is ruling this third house area. You've got Saturn here ruling this house. And so, you tend to be cautious, calculated, and serious when it comes to matters that involve communication. You may be okay with silences and pauses, for example, and you typically speak deliberately. It's like if there's nothing else to say, then why why would we say it, right? You say what you mean as well, I think. And perhaps you gained respect from your peers for such things growing up, or maybe it's that you are like this with other people. Respect is massive within general discussions. If you feel like you're being disrespected, or you feel like maybe others are being immature, they're talking over you, you could look at that as, okay, that's a sign of disrespect. And so I am gonna just remove myself from this, or not give them any of my energy, any of my time. Yeah, in this regard, you can be rather selective in terms of who you engage with. Now, another possibility is maybe you experienced mental blockages between you and your peers, you and your classmates growing up. Maybe there was some kind of disconnect there. There was an imbalance present there. But whatever the case, maybe you do possess a bit of a loner mentality, right? Where you think to yourself, do you know what? I've had to support myself here, communication wise, intellectually, all my life. I'm okay with being misunderstood at times. I'm okay with people not really getting it. They're just not really for me. It could be that kind of situation. Now, with that in mind, you want to locate Saturn itself, because Saturn is certainly going to add more to this story. It's going to shape more of this stuff for you. Still, I would say overall, with Capricorn in the third, maturity comes into communication. And if you at all feel like people are being immature or unwise or unreasonable, again, it just signals to you that they're not mature. So, what is the point? What is the point? Okay, then we come to, and one more thing I just want to say. Maybe you do want to learn more from professionals. That's another thing. You might prefer to learn from professionals, from experts, so on. All right, moving on. Let's look to Taurus in the seventh house, right? So this Venus influence, of course, ruling the seventh. You tend to attract partners, spouses, close friends, right, who are materialistic, dependable, reliable people, trustworthy people, and central. Naturally, there is more to that when we locate Venus. We also want to locate Venus for more of the story. Still, these partners could very well get you enjoying simple pleasures in life, right? I imagine you, for example, as you and your significant other, your spouse, indulging from time to time, being okay with spending a little extra money on that coffee together. And that's a part of your routine. That's a part of your everyday. And selfishly, yes, my partner has a Scorpio rising. And by the way, I don't have any Taurus placements, but whenever we're together, there is always that familiarity, that routine that's that happens in our relationship, that's about coffee. So it's always about going to the coffee shop every day. Just the little things, the small things in life, right? There is also this desire in general, Scorpio risings, to build on your resources, on your finances together. But some challenges you could very well face with them are stubbornness and a difficulty with change. That could be certainly something that you are to address, possibly within yourself, about your own stubbornness, your own kind of, no, I will not move from this position. I'm sticking to my guns here. People within your life could bring out these parts of you, if you will. And then it's a question of, are you willing to see it, right? The shadow. Still, again, like I was saying a moment ago, locate Venus for more information. Finally, let's look to the 11th house. You've got Virgo there, Mercury ruling the 11th. And so you tend to join groups that consist of bookworms, critics. We see here purists, possibly, health enthusiasts, health fanatics, perfectionists. And is it, I don't want to be inappropriate, but geeks, nerds, geeks, people who know a lot about things. And, I'm trying not to say that in an insulting way, because I'm not meaning for it to be insulting. Still, there's just something here about people who know what they're talking about, or who know a lot about certain subjects. They come across as knowledgeable or intelligent, right? They come across as educated within specific areas. Or it could be that you are a part of a very, very specific niche. Yes, very niche indeed. You'll typically offer your help and your support, your services to such people. But just as much, you possess standards, expectations. Others will fall short, or if others fall short, then it could be that you try to correct them, right? Yeah, others who fall short could very well be corrected, or, hey, avoid it. Avoid it. It depends on the situation. But in general, I do think there is a problem-solving feel. There's a problem-solving attitude that happens within those kinds of group dynamics. And so there is something here about all the group hopefully helping each other to improve and get better together, right? The last thing, though, to mention is this is where we see just how selective you can be when it comes to choosing friends. Yeah. Anyway, locate Mercury, because Mercury is going to really show up as, okay, well, is there more information there? Are there changes there? Are there certain things that could be added to this story for you? Thank you so much, Scorpio Risings. And now we're going to move on to Aries Risings. Okay, Aries Risings, let's talk about the houses of relating and socializing for you. Notice how the air signs are located in these houses. So really speaking to your own engaging ways, to how you could very well be natural communicators in many ways here. Though, let's look to the third house to begin with, right? You've got Gemini ruling the third, this Mercury influence in the third. So when we consider how you tend to engage with other people, just overall, you might engage with others out of sheer curiosity and observation. If something sparks your interest, you'll typically speak on it, right? This leads you to developing generalized sort of chit chat relationships with others. You may be that person within your neighborhood, your local area, who's able to say like hi to certain neighbors or people who pass by, right? It's that kind of chit chat. You might also be very good at sparking a conversation, sparking a debate, a significant discussion with other people. And then because of that, maybe people really like you, they enjoy being around you. Yeah, there's just this engaging way that you show up within those types of interactions. Having said that, of course, you do want to locate Mercury, because Mercury is going to speak more to this, is going to maybe counteract this information depending on where Mercury is. And the other thing to add to this is you might have been the person in school who could speak to just about anybody. Possibly. Again, Mercury could tell a different story. And perhaps you still keep in touch with friends from early school, right? I sort of imagine you as being the people who gathered a lot of different friends, and even into your adult years, you still keep in touch. Yeah, very interesting to consider. Moving on, let's think about Libra in the 7th. You've got this Venus influence then ruling the 7th. And what we see here is that you tend to attract partners, spouses, significant others who are charming agreeable, artistic. They possess brilliant minds. Maybe they're quite diplomatic. You can negotiate with them. These partners call on your consideration and courtesy. Yeah. And they bring out your ability to adapt, your ability to negotiate, your ability to adjust within social situations, Aries risings. Though, having said that, some challenges you could very well face within these types of relationships could be codependency. Codependency or avoidance of addressing conflict, right? That could be a thing where conflict is avoided, there's silence, things are swept under the rug because it's like, oh, I can't be bothered with that. But it could also be a case of you being able to weigh things out. Just ask yourself, is this really worth it? Like, is this argument worth it? Is this discussion worth it? Is it worth talking to this person? And then whenever you weigh it out, you think, okay, well, it's not meant to be, and that's okay too. And don't get me wrong, it could also highlight times whenever you stand for justice and fairness within a situation, whenever things are out of balance with Libra in the seventh. Indeed, this is what we see kind of reflected back at you through other people. These are the qualities that tend to perhaps come out of you whenever you are relating, when you're connecting within those one-to-one relationships. On that note, locate Venus. Venus is going to add more to the story here. Though, lastly, let's think about Aquarius. So Aquarius is in the 11th house here. And there's this kind of Saturnian, Uranus influence then ruling the 11th. So what this says about you is that you might join groups that are comprised of weirdos, misfits, outcasts, geniuses, innovators, inventors, scientific people, astrologers, people who love astrology, they love metaphysics, okay, esoteric subjects. And you might also desire to be a part of something greater than yourself, right? Making a difference, impacting other people's lives, influencing the masses, this type of stuff. And so you could connect with like-minded people who become your tribe. Yes, you might kind of be able to go in and out of different social circles. And because of that, you are liked and many people know your name, Aries Risings. Then again, you might also stubbornly push your ideals onto others whilst coming across as rather intellectually superior. That is a possibility. Though, it could also be that a lot of this is coming from pure passion. It's just your passion that comes out of you, and it's that passion and maybe helping the world, making a difference within the world, that other people do feel inspired by your presence. You might kind of unintentionally lead within social situations too. On that note, locate Saturn for more information, and naturally also locate Uranus for more information about this type of stuff, this area of your life. Thank you so much, Aries Risings. And now we're going to move on to Leo Risings. All right, Leo Risings, let's consider the social houses for you. Notice how you have air signs in these houses, really highlighting how expressive you can be, how communicative and interactive you can be, how intellectual you can actually be within social situations. So let's consider firstly this Libra influence hanging out in the third house. You've got this Venus influence there then. And what this suggests about you is that you tend to communicate with elegance and charm. Oh yeah, you can be charming people when engaging with others, which typically makes you well-liked or perhaps loved and really admired by other people too. You give by appreciating what others have to say, which they repay you kindly for, right? So for example, when you pay someone a compliment, what you may find is that other people they compliment you just as much. And then that within itself really, like, it gets you going. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel loved and admired by other people. Also, you could very well be the types of people who play devil's advocate. Yeah. If Other people have an opinion. You could take a bit of the opposite opinion to challenge the validity of their opinion. And this isn't like, I'm not saying this as a bad thing, as a negative thing. I actually think that this leads to healthy debate, healthy discussion, but you're going to be somewhat, you're going to be tactful about it, right? You're going to come across as quite pleasing too. Now, the other thing to add here is that perhaps at school, you were in your peers' good books because of your agreeableness. Therefore, friendships and companionships grew. And this agreeableness is also possibly what can result in you making friends easily, impacting other people, influencing other people easily, collaborating with others, so on, so forth. And that makes sense. It makes sense. You're able to build rapport really well with other people. Now, with that in mind, locate Venus, because Venus is going to speak more to how you generally engage with others. All right, moving on to Aquarius here in the 7th. You attract partners who tend to be quite quirky, intellectual, who tend to be independent. These partners get you experimenting, they get you thinking outside of the box. There is a level of conceptualizing here and thinking wider, thinking in more broader terms and concepts, being able to explore the bigger picture. And then this within itself could get you excited. You know, you may be nerding out on a certain subject with somebody that could get you really excited and passionate. And then it's through those types of relationships that you can continue that bond, continue that relationship. At the same time, we want to think about this Uranus connection because Uranus does rule Aquarius. So there could be out of the blue sort of situations, disruptive situations within your relationships as well. And those sudden kind of disruptions could lead to change and could create innovation. Though some challenges you could face within these types of relationships would be emotional detachment, along with, like, I'm trying to get at sudden, unexpected changes. So, yes, unexpected changes could show up in beneficial ways, but naturally, there could be those disruptions that create a pretty unstable type of relationship there as well. What we want to think about then is locating both Saturn and Uranus for more information. Lastly, let's consider Gemini. So Gemini is here hanging out in the 11th house, this Mercury influence ruling the 11th. Speaking to what? Well, speaking to how you could very well join groups that consist of jokesters, pranksters, liars, wordsmiths, smart alecks, gossipers, jack of all trade types, people who you can kind of goof around with, right? You can be banterful with them, witty, playful, creative, but there's also that versatility, right? The types of groups and friendships and clubs that are very diverse and flexible, and there's variety present. I kind of see this as you not sticking to one sort of area or club or group. Such groups may also lead you to saying one thing, but then doing another, right? Maybe you being misled possibly by certain friends or within certain group dynamics. But then again, you might also figure out really interesting facts through such connections. You're able to kind of piece the bigger dots together. I kind of imagine big eureka moments within groups and friendships you're a part of. And then that within itself could lead to greater connection and you being introduced to new people, possibly. It's like, I know a friend of a friend, and yeah, there's all those connections. Bigger networks come to mind here. Maybe you make friends easily and you jump from one group to another somewhat effortlessly. Yeah. Still, with that in mind, locate Mercury, because Mercury is going to certainly add more to the story. Thank you so much, Leo Risings. And now we are going to move on to Sagittarius Risings. All right, so for Sagittarius Risings, notice here when we explore these social houses for you, yes, you've got the air signs located in the social houses, speaking to your own intellect, your own mental stimulation within relationships when it comes to socializing, this engagement. But firstly, let's consider then Aquarius. So Aquarius is ruling the third house, hanging out in the third house, suggesting what? Suggesting that you tend to think and communicate in ways that could very well seem unusual or maybe weird or outside of the box in comparison to others. You could maybe play around with ideas and theories and concepts that other people maybe they have thought of before, they haven't thought of before, but it's these types of ideas that can make for insightful conversations. I even imagine this, for example, Sagittarius risings, as you being able to keep the conversation going and going and going. Because you're able to pivot, you're able to explore different territories, different avenues, and be somewhat unapologetic about that, because to you, maybe it's more objective. It's just about exploring ideas and it doesn't have to be something that's super personal, right? Though, with that being said, you could also possess rather chaotic thoughts, right? Uranus is naturally still a part of this. Chaotic thoughts, which can lead you to not maybe articulating yourself easily. I kind of imagine this, for example, as you having a lot of stuff going on in the mind, in your head, and then it's a matter of how do you ground that concept? How do you ground that theory in a way where people actually understand what you're saying? In this regard, it could be that you're more ahead of your time, right? You give it a few years, you give it a while, and then all of a sudden that stuff that you were trying to communicate long ago, it becomes more normalized. It becomes more acceptable within society. And then you're like, hey, I was talking about that years ago. Right, whatever. Then again, that could also create more of this influence of being sane and feeling like, okay, well, I can connect to people a lot better then. I can actually relate to people better then. You can find your tribe essentially here. And sure, you might not have been known necessarily in school, but you could have done your own thing. You could have done your own thing anyway. Or heck, with Aquarius here, maybe there is a part of this Sagittarius risings in which you would go in and out of different friendship groups. You didn't really belong necessarily to one major group or, a club, if you will. It was, to you, maybe the whole clique stuff was very off-putting. But still, I do think that there is something about you being able to be somewhat of a loner, a bit of a loner when you needed to be. With that in mind, locate Saturn and Uranus for more information as to how you generally engage with others. Moving on then to this Gemini influence in the 7th house, right? Mercury ruling the 7th. You tend to attract partners who are quick-witted, clever, chatty, or who are very diverse, versatile, who are able to switch things up. These partners urge you to address smaller details, which you tend to overlook, right? Because you can be so bigger picture minded. It's the visionary, of course, the visionary of the zodiac. But Gemini in the 7th kind of gets you looking at, okay, well, what are all of those moving pieces? And it's maybe through interactions with others, it's through a spouse, maybe it's through a partner where you learn a lot about the facts. You learn a lot about those kind of moving pieces and how they all connect to one another. Your partners, close friends, even close relatives, even, they get you speaking about generalized subjects. And hey, it could be through them that you learn a lot. And then that could also contribute to your own communicative style. And then that's where communication does, it comes across as more concise and to the point. Those bigger picture kind of concepts I was talking about earlier, maybe it's kind of through the other that you learn how to communicate those in ways that make sense. Though some challenges you may face within your relationships could be childishness, and quick scattered decisions. Okay, it's like that decision-making process, they could be swift, right? Your decisions could be swift without thinking things through necessarily. With that in mind, locate Mercury, right? Mercury is going to certainly add more to this story for you. And the last thing then to mention, of course, here is Libra. Libra is located in the 11th house, this Venus influence ruling the 11th, suggesting what? Suggesting that you join groups that consist of possibly beauticians, models, charmers, lawyers, people who stand for justice, people pleasers, perhaps, people who are rather refined and graceful. Artists comes through here. You prefer it if you and people within the group, if you're on the same page. There's something about being able to strive towards a common objective, a common aim, where in which everybody is striving towards the same thing and everyone's on agreement. Everybody can move towards that in this diplomatic, peaceful way. Sharing similar interests could very well matter to you. And so there's that relatability. Maybe for you, being able to relate to others is really important. It's finding that kind of, okay, well, is there a way to relate to this other person? And maybe during times when you feel like you can't, that could be where you think, this type of club, this type of group, it's not for me. But hey, you know what? With that being said, group rivalries can also happen because whilst Libra is about connections and relatability, Libra can also speak to enemies and people who oppose us. So yeah, that is also a potential theme here within your group dynamics, friendship dynamics. With that in mind, look at Venus, because Venus is certainly going to add way more detail to what I'm saying. Thank you so much, Sagittarius Risings. And now we are going to move on to Taurus Risings. All right, Taurus Risings, let's explore these social houses for you. Notice how the water signs are located in these houses, indicating that you can come across as rather emotional and receptive communicators. And whenever you do socialize, there's something here about being supported and your emotions being somewhat validated. So this leads us on to firstly, Cancer in the third house, right? You've got Cancer ruling the third, this moon influence ruling the third. So what this suggests about you is that you tend to be emotional and intuitive communicators. So for example, if something feels off within a conversation, you can sense it, you'll be able to feel it. This causes you possibly to clam up, but if you feel a level of ease and security within a social interaction, a social situation, you are more likely to come out of your shell. You're more likely to engage. Maybe you have been relatively shy amongst your peers throughout your life, or maybe during your early schooling years, you were quite shy, and it would take you a while to really open up to people. And perhaps too, you made a few really, really close friends at school. That could be a big thing for you, that when it comes to establishing a connection with somebody else, you might prefer to be very selective and you'll focus on security. Security is a big driving factor, I think, here. But indeed, we see here that when it comes to how you generally engage with other people, you're security focused, you're protective, and also you can be nurturing, right? You can nurture other people within conversations. And then there's also something here about other people nurturing you through maybe certain challenging topics, challenging subjects as well. The other thing that I'm going to say about this moon influence is because the moon is all about phases and cycles, there could be fluctuations. Fluctuations when it comes to communication, being in the mood for communication versus not being in the mood to communicate, as an example. And then going through certain phases with other people, phases when it comes to certain relationships. Maybe even, for example, establishing a closer bond with a classmate during your younger years. And that could be something that you keep as a friendship, that you hold on to as a friendship throughout your life. But then it could also be a case of that friendship running its course, right? That the friend that you were once close to throughout your schooling years is no longer. Speaking to those phases, right? Okay, with that in mind, locate the moon. Yes, you want to locate the moon for more information. But following on, let's think about then Scorpio. So Scorpio is ruling the seventh house. This Mars sort of Pluto influence in the seventh, or ruling the seventh. So you tend to attract partners who are probing, intense, investigative, passionate, perhaps even very loyal and committed. They are concerned more about intimacy and a deeper connection. These partners could very well also bring out your own fears, bring out your emotional complexes and your inner transformations. They urge you to dig deeper for better or for worse. All right. So, yes, transformations can happen via a significant partner, a spouse, a close friend, a close relative. And those transformations could be where you feel more resilient, you overcome a situation, there's a greater strength. But it could also be where things are really defeating. But hey, even following on from that, you may come out of that situation and you'll rise, right? It's the whole thing of rising from the ashes as the phoenix. And you know what? Some challenges you could very well face within your relationships are these power struggles, these power dynamics, obsessive tendencies, either from you or from the other person. I mean, what comes to mind here is stalker issues, things like that. Still, what you want to do is you want to locate Mars for more information about this stuff, and respectfully, Pluto, because Pluto is going to speak to those transformations. Though finally, let's look to Pisces in the 11th house. And so what this suggests about you is that you tend to join groups that consist of musicians, artists, dancers, painters, writers, spiritual seekers, photographers, meditators, possibly addicts. Yeah, possibly addicts. So, yeah, definitely show caution then in this regard. And there are many sacrifices that you are willing to make for such people, which could highlight your devotion. You know, you could be devoted maybe to a group of people, a friendship circle. I imagine this, for example, as you being a part of a friendship group that is comprised of maybe spiritual types of people, or people who are really into spiritual subjects, spiritual topics. And so you devote yourself to that type of stuff. Hey, you know what? I'm also going to say this: do be somewhat cautious, because this could further add to you being a part of a cult like sort of thing. And you don't realize. Yeah, there could be the whole trance-like state, brainwashing stuff to do with Pisces here in the 11th. So that's also where caution is necessary. On that note, yeah, locate Jupiter, locate Neptune for more information about that. Is the experience more challenging, more tricky? Is the experience more fulfilling, more beneficial for you? And you might also lose your identity in the group's ideal as you become one with their vision. So again, this is where we want to be mindful of you falling for certain ideologies that are like, I'm trying to get at, they're perhaps quite cult-like, or these ideologies where you sacrifice everything to be a part of that. But then it's like, well, where are you within all of that? Where are you? Again, like I'm trying to get at, locate Jupiter and Neptune And the last thing I am going to say is, this could be a case of you really being charitable, very hospitable, giving back to your community, volunteering, being a humanitarian, so on and so forth. Thank you so much, Taurus Risings. And now we're going to move on to Virgo Risings. Okay, Virgo Risings, let's talk about these social houses for yourselves. Basically, you've got water signs then in these social houses, suggesting emotional communication, being receptive, and a lot of feeling coming through communication, or being poured into communication, or when it comes to relating to other people. So let's consider then this Scorpio influence ruling the third house. We see this Mars sort of Pluto influence. Suggesting what? Suggesting that you tend to be somewhat skeptical, possibly suspicious, when conversing with others. For example, you might suss people out before striking up a conversation. Very, very selective people, very protective people. However, once you do get talking, you are willing to dive deeper into the subject at hand. Maybe you're the types of people where, in a social situation, you would rather go deep quickly than do the whole small talk and play around with that. Maybe that's what you prefer. And for this reason, you do prefer more intimate relationships in general, more intimate conversations. Heck, it could even be an intimate conversation with a stranger on the street, right? Where they're all of a sudden opening up to you or sharing all of their hidden stuff, their private stuff with you. It could be a case of many people saying to you, I've never told anybody this before, right? Yeah, honestly, this happens a lot, I think, for Virgo risings. However, your peers could have perceived you as standoffish, and maybe you kept to yourself at school. This could also happen in your older years. So whenever you get older, you could come across as standoffish, possibly, or it could be that something that you come to work throughout your life is trust. Trust, because in the past, maybe certain school friends, peers, cousins, siblings, maybe they went behind your back, maybe they betrayed you, right? They basically showed you that they cannot be trusted. And so maybe a challenge for you is trying to navigate, okay, not projecting your own lack of trust based on previous relationships onto other people. That could be a point of challenge, is what I'm trying to get at. And I'm also going to say this: you will defend other people within conversations. Maybe you can be quite protective of people as there are discussions happening, right? So if you can sense maybe that somebody else is feeling maybe like they're being attacked, or like they're being criticized, or they're being judged unfairly, you could very well jump in to try to protect that person, whoever it is. Hey, there's more to this though, because you want to locate Mars and you also want to locate Pluto in the chart for more information. Keep in mind that yes, Scorpio is going to speak to transformation when it comes to communication too. So the whole trust thing that I was previously talking about, transformations could very well occur where you become a lot more trusting of other people over time. And that requires a lot of inner work, a lot of reflection. And I am saying this as someone who has a Virgo rising. Anyway, let's now move on to Pisces. So Pisces is located in the 7th house area, this Jupiter-Neptune influence. You tend to attract partners who are sensitive. My goodness, very sensitive. Possibly musicians, musical types, artistic types, hospitable people, partners who may make sacrifices for the relationship, or very, very sympathetic partners or close friends, close relatives could come into this too. These partners have a way of tugging on your heartstrings as you subconsciously, willingly submit, right? Yeah, they could They could tell you a sub story and you fall for it, right? That is a possibility. Then again, like I'm trying to get at here, you can make sacrifices for the union. And hey, sacrifices for the union can show up in a more positive light too. Yes, this can indicate maybe, especially during your younger years, where things were a lot trickier, where there was disillusionment more, or where there was a lack of boundaries more. But maybe with time, maturity, wisdom, spiritual growth, inner work, you might come to a point where you see, okay, well, it is about negotiation and healthy negotiation. And that does involve, yes, making sacrifices within a relationship. But it is a question of to what extent is what I'm trying to get at here. And some challenges, like I was trying to also highlight there, some challenges you may face is the lack of boundaries and martyrdom. So it's a question of asking yourself, okay, well, when am I acting as the martyr? When am I doing that? And this within itself is a whole process. Yes. Still, locate both Jupiter and Neptune in your chart for more information. And hey, you know what? I'm also going to say this. There's devotion. With Pisces, there is devotion present. I mean, it could get to a point where you establish a type of relationship where there is great devotion and love and beauty and deep connection, deep bond. It's spiritual. There's that union. Lovely. Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, lastly, let's look to Cancer. Cancer is in this 11th house area, right? Ruling the 11th house. The moon is a part of this. You tend to join groups that are comprised of empaths, parents, nurturers, protectors, childhood friends, possibly manipulators. That is another thing. But you see closeness. You see closeness, security, protection, belonging. My word, you do. You seek belonging within your social circles. But you can also be influenced by too much so you can be influenced too much by other people's opinions, right? Where you might think, oh, should I be doing this? Should I be behaving this way? Should I be acting this way? Should I be following this path? Right? Yeah, you can be influenced by other people's views and opinions. Not to mention, your mood is easily affected by your friends, by groups and clubs. And so, for such reasons, a couple of things here. I would say this is why it's important for you to really listen to how you feel whenever you are within certain social situations. When you're involved with groups, listen to how you feel. There could be something here about, okay, listening to your intuition and being able to say to yourself, right, okay, this isn't for me. This is not the kind of friendship I want to be a part of. And then that's where certain friendships could end. This is where we see the phases, the ending of cycles to do with the moon ruling this house. But then again, it could also be a question of self-exploration, asking yourself, is it something about you, right? Is there something about your past? Is there something about what you're maybe contributing to a group? And then it's that kind of that inner exploration, that inner work that can be performed. With that in mind, locate the moon. Yes, yes, yes. Locate the moon for more information about these types of phases and cycles, these ebbs and flows within friendships and groups and so on. Thank you so much, Virgo Risings. And then finally, we're going to explore Capricorn Risings. Okay, lastly, Capricorn Risings, let's talk about the social houses for you. Notice here that you've got water signs hanging out in these social houses, really suggesting emotional communication, being sensitive to maybe other people's needs within conversations and discussions, just overall being quite receptive when it comes to socializing. So you've got this Pisces influence in the third house. Let's explore this to begin with. What this suggests about you is that you tend to show sensitivity and compassion when conversing with others, right? If we were to think about how you generally engage with other people, there is a compassion present. There's a sensitivity to other people's emotions, depths, maybe to their subconscious, their hidden fears, their hidden stuff. like a sixth sense, you just know. You just know what others are going through. And maybe that could be where you're able to act accordingly. You are an imaginative speaker and thinker. And so you might communicate through art. Communicating through art comes naturally to you. You're very, very gifted at this. So thinking about visuals, for example, music as another example, dance. You may have stayed in your own sort of bubble in school, possibly in your own sort of daydream, in your own fantasy world, maybe not paying attention in class, daydreaming in class, because you possibly were thinking about bigger and better things or about the fantasy world, using your imagination. Maybe your peers, possibly, they would take advantage of your kind nature. And that could be something that you're trying to come to terms with even today into your adult years, where you need to be mindful of who you give your attention to, who you focus on, because that could be a thing where you're easily influenced by other people. You're easily influenced by the words of other people, where you can become maybe emotionally distressed at worst, but then again, very inspired, and like you can follow maybe your dreams or follow your vision at best. That those are certain possibilities present. Now, with that in mind, locate Jupiter, locate Neptune, because they're certainly going to add more to this. They're going to speak more to how you generally engage with others. Okay. All right, then we move on to Cancer. Cancer is ruling the seventh house, this moon influence ruling the seventh. And so, what we see for you, Capricorn Risings, is that you attract partners who are supportive, caring, possibly nurturing, protective, security focused, family orientated. These partners may trigger you emotionally, but they also show you how to honor how you feel deep down. Keep in mind that, with you Capricorn Risings, there could be this rigidness at play. So it's almost like through others, you learn how to listen to your emotions, to your feelings. And the other thing about that is whenever you do honor how you feel deep down, that could either result in a challenge between you and a partner, you and a spouse, or it could result in greater closeness, greater vulnerability, greater connection, whatever it may be. That's also where, negotiation comes into it. That's also where asking yourself, asking your partner for feedback so that you can learn from them, maybe more about yourself. And some challenges you could very well face within your relationships. And this could, of course, still, it could be comprised of close friends, close relatives. So some challenges could be moodiness, clinginess. This type of stuff could be going on. And keep in mind too, seeing as the moon is a part of this, we notice phases, fluctuations, cycles coming to an end, new cycles beginning. This is where you want to locate the moon, assess where the moon is in your chart for more information, even assess the very path of the moon to see what is going on for you in terms of how your relationships may change over time. Okay, then we come to Scorpio in the 11th house. And this is more of a Mars Pluto influence ruling the 11th. Suggesting what? Suggesting that you join groups that are comprised of possibly witches, warlocks, undercover agents, sex therapists, extremists, controversial types, groups that are more about holistic sort of practices or spiritual practices that are about releasing emotions and exploring the shadow, exploring your depths, right? It's this type of stuff that we see. It's that shadow work that could be present within your friendships, within the clubs that you join. You are all in or all out when it comes to group involvements, which you show through your passion. So whenever you do say, okay, right, I'm going to join this club, I'm going to be a part of this movement, I'm going to be involved with this community, you're going to go all in. It's this question of, can I go all in? Will I go all in? And hey, if you decide to, you'll go for it. Indeed, this is where we see the extremes with Scorpio, possibly. And the other thing is you can be very resilient, very driven within these types of social circles. I even think about friendships here, and maybe you make friends for life because of your devotion, because of your commitment and your loyalty to those friends, to that community, whatever type of social group dynamic it is. And you can also spot a fake a mile away. Oh my gosh, you can spot the lack of authenticity and when people are maybe faking vulnerability too. And when you do trust others, oh my gosh, you will go to the ends of the earth for them. Oh my word, you can be so protective of your friends, so compassionate towards your friends and towards certain clubs and groups you join. With that being said, locate Mars. Mars will shed more light on this. And then also Pluto. Locate Pluto. Pluto, of course, is going to point toward the types of renewals and transformations and the progress that you make, the resilience that you have when it comes to those group dynamics. Thank you so much, Capricorn Risings. Yes, Capricorn Risings. And with that being said, everybody, this has been the video all about the trinity of intellect, socializing, relating, communication, all those types of things. Yeah, looking to those social houses, those houses of relatability. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. If you did find this video to be helpful, you can always buy me a coffee. And if you would like to book a reading with me, naturally go to hannahselsewhere.com. Yes. Thank you so much again for being here. And make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Give the video a like if you did like it today. And I will talk to you in the next one. Bye.